We've got enough battery?
It's showing full battery, but we've got batteries to go, so it might go on. It's dodgy. It seems to fall off the cliff, doesn't it?
Everyone caffeinated, hydrated?
Getting caffeinated
Horribly
right
so.
now.
Where did I put that bottle of water?
Getting it up me.
And I'm not fucking sharing it with you because he's got a fucking lurgy.
Got the lurgy.
Well, he's had the lurgy.
I can't shift the lurgy, man. It won't leave me.
Yeah. Shall we get into it?
We're into it. We're on. Yeah, the red light is on.
Ari, you lovely lot. Welcome back to NE1's Mental Health Podcast with me, Ray Elliott, and still a very stuffy Sam Warner. How are you, Sam?
Spotty dog.
Yeah. Oh, you nearly went into a bit Geordie there.
It was going to go, yeah.
Is it getting any better?
No. I've still got a very limited.
Give us a little bit.
Ray?
Why is it always good?
Let's be caught, you, Ray. Smashing watching the lads. That's
You always go back to that Sam Fender thing, innit?
I just love that though, because obviously my first socialising when I moved up here was in the gym.
Yeah,
really, like outside of people like you who I know and my wife and my family and that, obviously going out into the new world where I live up here, up in the north, and Jack, you'll probably know what it's like. You go and meet your new friends. Man, were all the old fellas in the gym and in the sauna and that, and they literally were.
They do
reminded me of that video that Sam used to do of like, "Hey, got me, Ray," and never say goodbye. And I would sit with them lads in the mornings and just tickle me. So that's me go-to. I apologise to all the Geordies listening to me
just
doing
offended,
fucking horrific Geordie accent.
Yeah, nice one, Sam.
Tune.
What a way to start. So from one adopted Geordie to another.
Yeah.
Jack Caldwell.
Yeah.
Top-notch barista.
I try.
Brighton native, now residing in the northeast. And the man responsible for about 80% of the artwork on my body, because you are Jack Caldwell Tattoos, currently doing tattoos out at Tynemouth Tattoo Emporium?
Tattoo company.
Yeah. It shows how much I pay attention to it. I'm there every month.
That's not part of it. You just come get a tattoo. That's it.
Yeah. So, Jack, I dare say we haven't got an agenda on this. Like I say, it's just a chat. We're going to just chat about growing up, what it's like, how it's been moving to the northeast. But I think first question where we should start is, how are you, Jack?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good today.
Yeah?
Yeah. Excited. Never been on a podcast. Don't listen to them. So, yeah.
Don't listen
You
to
don't
him.
listen to him.
No.
That's interesting.
It's funny because every time I go for a tattoo, he tells me he listens to this, but
Yeah. It's just
say
it's a
anything,
big blank.
and the money all like that. Idiot. Yeah. Just a good place to chat. Podcast, man.
Yeah.
We'll get it. I think, like I was saying, every time I come for a tattoo, we end up.
We get into it.
We
Talk
do,
about some
don't we?
weird shit.
Yeah, we really do. And I think, I don't know what it is about that environment, and I hope we talk more about this, but people talk about barber shops. People come in and they just open up. I suppose getting a tattoo, you're there longer.
Yeah.
You're getting inflicted a lot of pain upon you. I don't know if that lowers you.
There's an intimacy, isn't there?
Yeah, certainly.
A trust that has to kind of be formed and.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really open though, eh? You will talk. And that's why I thought you'd be a great guest. But do you find that? Do you find people come in and just start talking about?
Yeah, 100%. People come in and tell you everything. Like, they have customers.
Whether you want to hear it or
Yeah,
not.
that's it. So, lots of the time you get into a decent conversation that is a back and forth, and that's like really beneficial. And I think a lot of people are getting tattooed either for like milestones in their life or because they're going through something or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's a nice social thing to do. And I think a lot of people, well, I look at it as like people getting their hair done, where you go and you sit and get your hair done for 3 or 4 hours as a woman. Like, there's lots of guys that come in and that's their nice treat for themselves. They get to enjoy.
Like self-pampering, self-care, a bit of a jolly for me,
and
me time.
A bit of like adrenaline, isn't it? There's lots mixed into it.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Obviously, like a lot of people are coming to celebrate something or, commemorative tattoo, and then that gets into the conversation straight away, doesn't it?
Or it'd be an inside joke or something silly between friends and stuff, and you're like, I can't not ask why we're all getting rats tattooed on us. Like, what's the story? And then they get into it and you're like, I've done that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, funny, I think I've asked you what's that tattoo about? And you're like, no, I just thought it was cool. And I'm like, and there's that too.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting perspective, isn't it?
Well, I'm not big into like clothes really. I'll just buy clothes and wear them for like 10 years. That's
You
fine
say
with me.
that, but for the listeners, he's
Yeah,
very slick,
he's
very
very-
cool.
Yeah, these are one of my 2 pairs of Dickies. The other ones are exactly the same, but with more stains.
Yeah, no.
Straight from the skate park at Whitley Bay.
That's
Yeah,
it.
very cool.
Skating has been a big part of your life, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
skateboarding's good, but it's savage on you. So like you get hurt, and then you get hurt again, and you get hurt again, and you can't tattoo and get hurt. So
Haven't you just explained tattooing?
yeah, it's all linked. I think it's all together.
Yeah, I've got this theory about tattoos. You've got to have enough space between them to just forget about the pain before you're ready for your next one.
Yeah, it's probably a good shout.
Yeah,
Just get over it and then get back in.
yeah. Like there's normally like for me, it's got to be a few weeks, and I've noticed now that my sort of threshold, I'm thinking 3 hour max, and then I'm
3
I'm
hours. is
tapping
plenty.
out.
Yeah,
Like these people that do these back pieces, and they're like booked in for like a full
I've done
day.
it. I've been humbled. You book in for a full day, and you're like, "How to get my line work done? I'll get some shading put in," and then you get to the first bit of shading, you're like,
Yeah. Is that us? I think that's us. That's me.
Yeah.
Well, that made us laugh. The last tattoo I got the elbow done, and the intention was to colour in the elbow, and we got right at the end, and he was like, "You're very quiet, Ray," and he's like, "We're going to go for this," and I was like, "We absolutely aren't."
No, but that's like a good thing in tattooing, I think, when you're not forcing people to go beyond their boundaries, because it's already an uncomfortable thing. It's costing money. People might be nervous or whatever. And I think it's nice to be really open with everyone. And I think that's why I am so open with everyone, because I'm like, you're stepping into where I work. Let's just have a nice time and not make it like some pretentious massive thing where you have to be like hard and sit through it and like earn your tattoos. I'm just like, if you want to tap out, you tap out. It's fine with me. I'll go to the pub.
Have you seen these memes doing the rounds at the minute where it's like tattooing in the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Versus tattooing today. And they're like basically like throwing darts at people to tattoo them, and you know, like getting them in a headlock and that. And now it's like, oh my gosh,
It's definitely changed as an industry, but I've not been in it long enough to have seen it that much. But you get the stories, hear about the old shops, the old guard, as it were.
Yeah,
It's good fun. Some lads that I used to work with that have been like in biker shops and stuff like that, and their stories are kind of like totally wild and off the wall. And I think, glad I wasn't in that, because I'm not cut out for that environment.
the culture around tattooing's totally changed. What was a big shift for me? I went to live in New Zealand, and obviously, you know, is it Tomoku, the face tattoos?
Oh, yeah.
So you're seeing people like, you know, walking through the CBD, full business get up, and they've got like face tattoos, and it's obviously part of the culture, but they were just, everybody seemed to have them, and there was no area that was sort of taboo. And we've always thought, I'm talking to somebody here with hand tats, neck tats, and head tats, where, you know, well, Sam as well,
Yeah, I've got hands and necks.
That sort of might have been frowned upon. I think they call the hands job stoppers, don't they?
Job stuff.
Job stoppers.
Not anymore, though. I think you get more jobs with tattoos. Like, for the jobs that I've done, anyway, they don't seem to mind.
You know why you're saying that, don't you? Because I'm thinking about getting my hand tattooed.
Yeah,
so
you've got to get your hand tattooed.
Yeah.
Once you've done your arm.
Yeah,
gotta
it just
get
finishes it off, doesn't it? But that culture, you must have seen a big shift in that, even in the last sort of 10, 15 years. I think it was 15 years I was in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But I don't know. I've always just got the tattoos that I've wanted to get, because it's like, it's just who you are. So I don't know. Maybe it is a reason not to employ someone. I don't know. But
that is a strange thought process, isn't it? That this person's got this set of skills, and because they've got something on the body, they no longer can do this job.
Well, I originally got my hand tattooed because I went for a job interview and my hands were like wrecked, because I used to like work on cars, skateboard, like vaguely self-harm and be like really careless when I was drunk and stuff. So I'd have like scarred, sliced open knuckles off punching a for sale sign on the way home, because it's like, fuck you can't sell your house, I'm miserable. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tear that down. Divine retribution, take care of you. But I went in and I seen her looking at my hands and I didn't get the job, and I was like, what do you want? These are already fucked.
I don't want to wait for you anyway.
I'm just gonna get hand tattoos and be myself and not worry about.
I love that. More power to that.
Yeah, like there's no point worrying about what people are going to do for you in the future when you want to do something in the present, I think.
Yeah.
But with that said, don't be impulsive. Like, there was still a thought process to it of why I thought it was going to be appropriate to have my hands tattooed.
Yeah. You just touched on something quite briefly there about self-harm. I was doing it. I don't know if you're aware of mental health first aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's
we were talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd done a mental health first aid course on Monday, Tuesday in Scotland last week, and the topic of self-harm come up, and it was like signs that you might notice in people that they are self-harming, and one of them was tattooing.
Yeah.
One of them was like, going with the intentions of the pain, and this sort of scarification. There was, there was not excessive piercings and whatnot, and it never really crossed my mind because obviously I get tattoos because I want them, and the pain is just something that comes with it, and I don't like it. Have you seen any? Have you experienced any of that?
Yeah, so I think, not to encourage anyone to do it, but I think one of my favourite things is tattooing over people's self-harm scars because it's like a nice reclamation of their body. And like, I've tattooed some people that have been going on holiday with their family and they don't want them seeing these scars that they've had on their upper hip or something, but they have to wear a bikini. Wow. So then you tattoo over them and stuff. But it's nice to get the opportunity to like help someone out with that. And hopefully it's not a transfer of interests from self-harm and the gratification that you get there. But I guess it could be for some people, but there's no real way of telling apart from just having an honest conversation with your customer. But
I think again in that setting when you're actually tattooing over some scars that have been from self-harm, that conversation's just it's going to open up, isn't it? Do you find people are as open when you're in a because we were at what's a tattoo shop at Whitley Bay again?
Iron Hand.
Yeah. I always forget what it's called. That's quite an open space and there's a lot of people in there having conversations. Do you think people are still open in that setting, or do you think?
I think it's tough. I think it depends on the person because there's some people that will come into a tattoo shop and they'll lose all their wits. There'll be a dead switched on person. They'll come in and they see all the beds set up and the needles out and stuff, and then they're just like wandering around doing strange things. And you're like, come back. Like, we're doing a tattoo, and people sometimes lose the ability to function just because they're nervous or whatever. I think that sometimes makes people more chatty. Some people are just naturally chatty. I think some people, like me and you, we get on really well anyway outside of it, and we just chat normally. So that works really well, and that's a percentage of your customers. But some people just want to come in and get their tattoo and leave. Might be because they're nervous or whatever. But I think a lot of people do see it as a little moment, like they're paying for your time, and part of your time to chat in a way. But I am dead chatty.
I would agree with that. I would say there's I've got a few tattoos at this moment in my life, up to now. And over the time, not only have I chosen a particular artist because of the style or whatever, but there is that side to it. There's the intimacy side of the trust and the friendship and the ease of that time you spend, 100%. Which is really has been important for me over the years.
It's like, if you boiled it down, it's as simple as going to a pub that you like. Maybe it's not got the best beer or the best view or whatever it might be, or the best reputation, but you go because you like it there and that's your comfort zone and everything like that. So there's a lot to consider when you're tattooing people, because you could just get people in, do their tattoos, get rid of them, get your money and leave. And there's like, that's not the passionate side of it for me. I'd rather do a nice tattoo for a person, have a nice time for everyone.
That's an interesting part of the job, right? Because we can talk about how you got into tattooing. You might just like tattooing, you might always wanted to be a tattooist, but there's not many people, I would imagine, talk about that part of the job where essentially like you're gonna have to have these really in-depth. There might be somebody that says something to you in passing, and you think, whoa, there's something in that. Maybe they need a little bit of assistance. Has there been times where you've that's crossed your mind, where you've thought they've shared something there that's not really?
I think there's lots of stuff that gets said when you're tattooing, but I think there's plenty of times where someone will almost drop a hook into a conversation, and then you'll be able to start having a more important conversation than how you doing? Like, do you mind if I get ink on this t-shirt? Chit chat. But then someone will say something, and then for me, I think just the way my brain works, I'm like, oh, that relates to me. I can discuss this topic at length and easily, and then just get on with it.
Because where would you go if you were concerned about something somebody said? What would you?
Oh, you mean like for their welfare and stuff? Yeah. God knows. There's not a standardized practice within tattooing. That's
what I mean. It's tricky, isn't it? And like I say, like barbers, you're not trained to be a therapist. No. I don't know if that. I mean, I'm not saying everybody who gets in a tattoo needs to become some sort of mental health first aid art trained, but it might be something that is considered as part of the role.
Absolutely. I think because it is so intimate in terms of like what you're doing to your body, and that it is painful.
It's forever as well. And like, you're trusting somebody with that.
I've tattooed people on a Friday, and then like the next week they're like, "Can you cover this up? I don't like it anymore." And it's not because I've done a bad job, but it's because they decided that they wanted like this random tattoo, and I'm like, sure. As like a businessman, it's not really my obligation to tell you to wait, but then it does make you wonder what someone's thinking.
Can you tell, Joe, when somebody comes in, when somebody's sort of on a bit of a whim, and they might be making a decision that they might regret, or is it just a case of, I want this tattoo, or do people come in and say, what have you got? Can I just
whole mix again? There's the whole thing. But I think for me, when people come in on a whim to get a tattoo, I'm like, I've done that and it's fine and I enjoyed it, and I've got tattoos that aren't great or not particularly good, but I think I look at it from a positive point of view more than being like, should I tattoo this person? I'm like, yeah, let's do a tattoo, let's have some fun and get you what you want, because ultimately we're all adults wandering around making our own agentic decisions, and I'm hoping that everyone's going to get tattooed in a fair state of mind. Like, I wouldn't tattoo someone drunk. Like, if someone was clearly on drugs, I would be like, you're all right, like you can come back next week, I'm still going to be here, you're going to be here, like we don't have to do it today.
Going back to the 90s, I think there'd be beers in the fridge. Like,
of course there are beers in the fridge, but they're for after work.
for the tattooist.
Yeah, and I think you get a bunch of tattoo artists together, someone's going to do something kind of funny, kind of stupid, maybe. Like, I got my toes tattooed at a shop party by 10 different people that didn't tattoo, which was definitely an option, definitely a choice.
I went to a wedding recently, it's my good mate's wedding, and he had a tattoo. Well, it's a guy from the shop at Tynemouth. He was there, and I was just, do you know, even then I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. And then I seen the book, and it was just all like NUFC this, and I was like, I'm gonna do this, and luckily the queue was so long I didn't end up doing it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's one of them, like the hangover where you wake up with one on your face. Tune black and white army on your eyebrow or something.
I was saying to Jack just before we get going, I haven't had the itch. We talked about it this week. I've not had the itch for any work. I think I had the last batch of work that I had done was my neck, and that was around between 2018 2019. I was going back in little spits and spurts, and it was really manifesting it for me. Like, I imagine it on me. How would it feel? What's the weight of it? What's the balance of it? You know, what is the thing that I'm having done? Because again, it's so vast, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's so vast. Like the stuff I've had from being 17 years old in 1997, I think, or 98, my first tattoo, compared to what my latest stuff was. I can look back at my first time, I'm going to get that took off because it's shite, but it's part of that journey, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you're thinking too much into it, Sam. I think you should just get a dolphin on your cheek and some barbed wire around it, like Pammy from back in the day.
Oh God, Pammy's barbed wire.
It's coming back, that, isn't it? The barbed wire stuff. It's always been part of traditional. Yeah. And that's what you specialise in, isn't it? Traditional tattoos.
Much prefer traditional. Yeah. Nice. You know where you stand with traditional.
Bold,
got your outline.
Classic.
Yeah.
But like, I see some of the stuff that's come back and I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah. So one thing I do want to, just as while we're still on the tattooing, this is something that I often think about. Do you have to be an artist or a good artist to be a tattoo artist?
No, I think you could be entirely a craftsman if you were that driven to do something. There's people who are just geared, basically, I think, to make images, and they'll make them however they need to make them. So if you needed to get into printmaking, you could sit and learn to do printmaking, and you could be an absolutely outstanding printmaker and never make a single image. And tattooing, you could do that, but I think having some artistry to you where you can like look around at the local area or like current affairs or something like that and make something that's relevant, that's where the artistry stuff comes into it, I think, a lot, for me anyway. And like lots of my tattoos that I draw that I want to tattoo on people are really dumb. They're really stupid, but they're just like little jokes.
Give us an example, John.
Oh, I don't know. Well, just silly little things. Like I drew like a little toon guy because the toon won, didn't they?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
That whole thing's a joke. Like, I was going to paint it red and white just to wind people up.
I'm going to say this with a firm level of confidence. Don't do that.
It's a terrible idea.
But there is people out there who will
if you red and white at a tattoo that was saying toon, there'd be hell on. Like,
someone's getting that
just as a painting
right now.
You go viral
just
for
a painting. Like. That's the whole thing.
Can have painting.
Yeah, just do the little painting, offer it out. I'm not saying I'm going to deface the guy's body with the wrong colours. No, absolutely.
There's one tattoo I've seen that he put on. It's just a middle finger on wheels, and I thought
that kind of thing is great. I don't know what's happening with that. Just have a laugh.
That's an insight into your being, So aside from tattooing, obviously you haven't got a Geordie accent. You're not from these parts. So you grew up in Brighton.
Well, Worthing, just near Brighton.
Worthing. So I suppose any story, you go back to the beginning, don't you? What was it like growing up in Worthing?
Oh, Worthing's, it was all right. as a town, as like a place to be. I think it was like a slightly older population, fairly small when I was there, but it was like just decent. At the beach, parks and that. Got up the South Downs, that was fun.
South Downs,
there you go. Get on your mountain bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad was a doctor, and my mum like stayed at home to look after us. So it was like we had a huge house as well, and it was just like our friends were always very welcome around and things like that. So it was like the idyllic little corner of a childhood that you want, basically. But my mum was a really big drinker, and I think maybe had like borderline personality disorder. So that was normal for us, and I think I didn't realise that wasn't normal until I was about 12. But like, we had really good groups of friends and stuff. But I remember going to a friend's house, and their parents weren't like drunk and arguing and like nearly getting to blows and stuff. And I was like, "This is weird.
Yeah,
is your parents not arguing?" He was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, shit."
Insight, yeah.
So then you start comparing things. So you start getting switched on that age, don't you? Start understanding a bit more.
Yeah.
You only know what you know as well, don't you?
Exactly. So
What's
I think
normal's normal.
then I started skateboarding a bit more, and like it's easy to be out of the house skateboarding because you just need to be out of the house to skateboard, don't you? So go out at 8 a.m, come back at 8 at night or whatever, dodge anything that you can. It was good.
And you said, so your siblings.
Oh yeah, me and my brother.
Yeah.
So I've got an older brother who's the exact opposite of me, really.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, he's got like 3 kids, house,
Right.
wife, dog, business. It's funny.
You're selling him as conventional.
Oh, very conventional. Yeah. Nice lad though.
Yeah, you get on well.
Yeah. We've got like a really good understanding of each other, I think. So we don't have to speak every day or anything. But
And I'm just thinking of you sort of painting that picture there. Initially very idyllic, nice house.
Yeah,
obviously, financially stable. It sounds like, living in a lovely
great
part
holidays.
Of the world. And then within a sentence, it would be common for people to hear. Like mum drinking, arguments.
Yeah.
That environment. And being kids sort of coming I remember that exact thing, Jack, being at a friend's house and like, what, your dad like has a laugh with you and like asks you, and he's here. Like, wow. And that internalization, did you and your brother ever sort of discuss that as young kids? Did you know that as kids, or was it sort of unraveling as you were growing up individually?
I think we knew it, but I don't think we ever talked about it specifically. But I remember they sat us down when I must have been like 8 or something, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to get a divorce, we're going to split up," and all that. I remember my brother being in tears and stuff because he was 11, and he obviously understood what that meant. I was like, "Oh, fucking divorce." Ryan's dad's divorced. He's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter to me. 2
lots of presents.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I remember that happening. And then he was like adamant that they should stay together and stuff. And I remember like clearly after that conversation, there was a bit where they were like, "Oh, we're going to stay together for you guys." So every time I saw them after that, I was like putting in my little accounting book of parents had argument while staying together for me. So I like always shouldered that burden for no apparent reason. You just do, don't you?
Really interesting.
But I think you do, like as a child, you like are aware of your cost. I don't know if everyone was, but I think like you look at people's relationship and you're like, "Oh, they're doing that for me because that's what they've told me," and that's like.
Isn't it interesting as well that we'd probably argue that a lot of kids, it's breaking down around them, and no one does sit you down and say, "Look, we're going to split up," or I just got taken to another house and my dad wasn't there, and it was like it wasn't spoken about. It was kind of just sort of. And then I went to this other gentleman's house, and we're going in that house, and he's a nice guy and that. And do you want to come play football in this field? And I was kind of playing football in this field, and we're like, "Oh, we're going to stay here." And I'm like, "Okay, we're staying here." And I had 2 brother and sister. I was the oldest. I'd have only been 7, 8.
Yeah,
and it was like nobody actually sat. So there's no way to win, is it really?
Well, I think they sat us down and had that conversation, but they'd never talked to us about it before. So everything had been like cloak and dagger. And then they sat us down and had that conversation, and that was it. And then
just you feel that burden
carried on. And then they didn't divorce till I was maybe 23 or something like that. Right. And I remember when that happened, I went out for a beer and was like, "That's the start of like a really horrendous session, and I'm not going to do it." So I just like up and left the pub and didn't drink for like 18 months because I was just like, I know where that's going to go, because you grow up around that drinking, don't you? I don't know if anyone did. But
my mum died through alcoholism. I know we've had a few chats, so what you were saying there resonated massively with me.
But you grow up learning that normal and that treatment of each other and that treatment of your loved ones and your family and stuff, and you wake up in the morning and they say, "Sorry about last night, I hope you're all right," and you go, "Okay, that's how you deal with that." So I'm just going to go out, get drunk, treat people like shit. In the morning, I'll apologise.
Then it's
They'll
okay.
understand that I love them. It's all fine. And then you've got a horrible drinking habit.
Well, the weird thing for me in that situation is things would happen on the. So my mum was undiagnosed bipolar, right? And I don't know if you know about the sort of depressive and mania manic stages, but she would go through like an episode of mania, and she would do all this. She was like, I think there was a lot of rumours about, you know, promiscuity and whatnot, and it was really hazy, but there would be sort of really big bust-ups and arguments and things happen. But then they would get up the next day and nothing would be said, and it would just be like off to work. And then for me, I remember like being like, did that really happen last night?
Yeah.
And just what you were saying about, you know, staying together for you, I had that exact conversation with my parents when things turned to shit, and then they got back together, and it was really toxic and shouldn't have happened. And it just, because my mum, in April it'll be 10 years since she passed, but I sat down with my dad and my sisters, because I've been carrying this feeling from being a kid that they broke up because of me.
Yeah.
Because there's a big age difference, 10 and 12, between me and my sisters, and they, by all accounts, they had quite a different childhood to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like when I come along, things turned to shit when I was like 5 or 6, and then I'm like, well, I'm the common denominator here, and then getting told, oh, you know, we got back together for you because we could see that there was big changes and you couldn't look people in the eye and all that, and that lives with you, doesn't it? So I had to have that conversation, like, did it to me dad?
Yeah.
Did it happen because of me? What am I to blame? Like,
wow,
am I the burden? You know, and you carry it with you, and it just seeps into your body, and then lots of things in your self-worth and your opinion of yourself. And, you know, my dad was like, absolutely not. It would always happen that way. It wasn't because of you. You know, but that feeling's still there.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about it is, like, you know, as a kid, you just don't understand why things are happening and whatnot. And then the older you get, you realise that your parents are just human beings.
Yeah.
And they're just experiencing life, and they're carrying their baggage and their shit that they went through, and they're trying to
thinking about their parents and what they came from, and like, wow.
And I think about my dad and my mum and their upbringing, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then ultimately they're probably just trying to do the best they can. Found themselves in a bit of a toxic relationship situation, and there's, you know, collateral damage in that. Not that they were bad people at all. I love them a bit. But
I think you see it lots online at the minute, where there's like people diagnosing people being like, this is a narcissist, or this is someone who has bipolar, or whatever it might be, and it's like so damaging because it takes away from the actual person. Because if you label someone as something, you call them a lost hope or whatever. But like, if you've grown up with someone who's undiagnosed bipolar, and I think my mum might have had borderline personality disorder and stuff like that, you still need to give them the effort and time as a human being, not as like the thing that you're just saying that they are. And I think if your parents go through a messy divorce, like sounds like both yours did, like I remember my dad kept saying, oh, well, your mum's done this, your mum's done that, when they were getting divorced. And I like sat him down and I was like, Gordon, you got to take it easy with the your mum stuff, because it's your ex-wife. It's not my mum that's doing that. It's your ex-wife. And like, you got to keep a difference here so I can be agentic.
Well done to you.
How old were you then when you were having that conversation?
Oh, I was about 22-ish, 23 maybe.
Can I just ask, Jack, because you said about you walked out of that session, you knew where you were headed with the drinking. Did you end up with any addiction issues? Did you fall into drink or drugs or a behaviour cycle and
there's
destruction, essentially?
Like, there's definitely a chase of like destruction in there. And I think that there's an addiction to not being sober, which was like a chase for a long time. And I think that might be because I'm maybe ADHD, but the government don't want to diagnose anyone with that, you know? Right. You got to wait 4 years. They keep sending me text messages and I keep not reading them. But
you're still on the waiting list. We haven't forgotten about you.
If you've changed your address, I don't know where I was living 4 years ago. Have I updated it? But no, like, it's definitely difficult if you grow up around drinking or drugs. I assume, like, my parents, I was lucky enough that they didn't do anything, and I don't think if they did it was secret. But I have massive sympathy for anyone that grew up in a household of addiction, because it's horrendous, because you don't understand what a normal thought process is. Like, I remember coming home from school at 3 because my mum hadn't come and got me. I only went to school down the road, walked home, and she was just lying in the back garden, like passed out drunk, and she'd broken her ankle. And I just left her there until my dad came home. And I was like, sure, I guess that can happen. But like, you're young enough where the situation you're in feels normal because you're so young that you can't understand that it's abnormal.
You said it earlier, normal's normal.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. There's nothing to measure it against.
But what comes from that? I learned this through seeing a psychologist, right? And you know, your core beliefs on the world are formed from certain ages.
Yeah.
It's like between the age of 6 and 16, right? And if you're experiencing things like that where your mum's just passed out and she was meant to come and get you from school, you know, you come in and she's just sitting in the back room listening to depressing music, and I'm saying this from experience, or, you know, you're helping at the bed or whatever. You know, that person that's there, that's meant to be sort of the corner. So she brought you here and you know, make you feel safe, soothed, seen. If that isn't there, and there's a detachment from a young age, that what's downloaded in your computer is, you know, your view upon yourself, others, and the world.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't even know it's happening, but it's happening.
Yeah. It's like you're saying with your parents saying, "Oh, we're split up because of you," or whatever. You just like manifested that in yourself. Like,
God,
you will know that for the rest of your life.
Define yourself in that way.
So I think I've always not felt like I'm at home in places. So I'll move into a house and be like, "Cool, my stuff's here. I'll just stay here for a bit." But it's not like I'm like, "This is my home now." And I think that comes from just being younger and coming in the house and being like, you guys could do your shit here, I'm gonna go out and do some other stuff and like stay at some friends' houses and stuff. So I remember like 15, 16, I'd like have a rota of people's houses that I'd stay at through the week and stuff.
Wow.
Just like, but I never was like, "Can I stay at yours?" I was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Do you want to play some video games?" Like, I'll come around. Like,
So they didn't know they were on the road.
yeah. Secret rota, you know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting you said about your brother and, you know, how we can come from the same nest, the same background, the same home, and have polar opposite ways of dealing with things. And Ray and I have been out busy doing our talks recently. Hence, he's mentioned, I don't know on this podcast, but certainly the last one we didn't get one out last month because we've been that busy. And when I'm telling my story over time, I realise like my siblings. So I'm the oldest of ultimately 6, but 3 from my mum and dad's initial marriage, who you know, and then I've got 2 half brothers and a half sister. But that thing that we learn about cycles and generations of trauma and stuff, you know, like I've managed to break that cycle, although I was probably the most aggressive, destructive seeking, you know, ended up crack, heroin, just fucking violent, awful person. But I managed to break that chain. And out of all of us, I'm, I guess, the most conventional now. I'm married and I have children and I own my house and I go to work and I'm not, you know, living in a frivolous and wild way anymore. Whereas my siblings in different ways are struggling to sort of break whatever that norm is. Because when you said that earlier, that really struck me as like wild stuff happening in your house at night. Your mum's, you know, in my case, my mum's shark eyes coming out. Because again, you've heard me say on the talk this week, Ray, I never thought my mum was an alcoholic because she got a job and she's up mopping and fucking cleaning and like, I had no idea really that there's such thing as a functioning alcoholic, and that alcohol, whatever time it is, she gets on that wine and then the shark eyes come and then just ripping into people.
The shark eyes is really like, you see it when you say it. Like, I've never heard someone say it, but like,
the shark
I look back
eyes.
my little mind's eye and I'm like, oh,
It's just fucking boom. And then, like, you know, my mum would be at the telly and, you know, weird stuff. I remember we'd be watching EastEnders again because, you know, I'm a kid of the 80s, 90s, and, you know, mum would have the soaps on and she'd be like, the same character night after night. I can't bear her, or fucking Question of Sport. Right? This is going back, showing my age now. Ian Botham and Bill Beaumont were the team captains, right? Check that out, elder listeners, right? And my mum had a bother. She had a real issue with Ian Botham's moustache. It was a moustache.
I hope I don't meet her.
And she had the problem with his moustache. And I'd be fucking little on the edge of the sofa, like, just, you know, like when you're a kid and you just like, no one said go to bed yet. You know,
that was the best. And it was weird.
Like, no, I'm just being still and quiet. I ain't got to go to bed. This is great, you know. And then my mum would just be like, I just don't understand why he has this bloody thing on his. You know, but over time, I realised like this projection of like sort of vitriol and like unhappiness around you for others, and like you say, the next morning, you know, that's just superficial stuff on the telly. But you know, they'd just rip into my stepdad or into me or into my brother, and like, you know, it'd be violent as well. And then the next morning, like you say, like that, how insidious that is. It's just normal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, not even acknowledge it, just go on and like, oh, and what do you want to do
Yeah, Mum was always like
that mixed me up.
The next day, when Mum would go and buy like gifts or whatever, she'd go to Greg's and get like a 4-pack of caramel donuts and bring them home. And I've just like learned to find gift like receiving so uncomfortable because I'm like, you're just buying me. You're just like, and it's just like it remains that like I don't do Christmas or birthdays for anyone ever. But I'll get someone a gift like on the off chance that I've seen something they'd like. But like I don't know if I've ever really bought like a partner flowers or anything like that because it's like ingrained in me that I'm like, that's disingenuous. You know, you need to like say how you feel. You need to appreciate someone like truly, because the gift giving's secondary, isn't it? Like, it's nice to buy someone a handbag or something. You know, they're happy, whatever.
But that imprinting that you're talking about, Jack, that imprinting of that those formal years of, like you said, where your worldviews, your point of perspective, your core value, what you associate with kind of being safe and soothed and seen, and kind of whatever your self-esteem needs to be built of. Yeah, those things are. How, over the years, then, how have you coped with that? Have you spoken with someone? Have you had any kind of therapy over the years? Have you been, you know, book smart, read stuff? So
I think going back to what I was saying about not just labeling people as and writing them off because they've got X, Y, or Z diagnosis. Like after my parents divorced, I reached back out to my mum and I was like, do you want to do some like counselling together? So we like set that up and we went and did that for I think 8 weeks, which was pretty brutal, but like
that's incredibly mature though.
Yeah,
I'm really impressed with
ultimately you don't want to like lose your parents,
foresight,
like, whoever they are, because you never know, you might sit down with them and have a nice conversation and be like, oh, thanks for telling me that makes sense why your behaviour came out that way or whatever, and that's going to give you the closure, like you say, to get your life sorted and stop with whatever you're doing to try
break some of those patterns.
Break some of the patterns and stuff. So
that's
we went
amazing.
And did that.
I've not heard many people.
I've tried, you know, to say that to my mum.
Yeah,
I've asked my mum even recently again. Yeah,
so it's almost like a safe space for somebody impartial.
Yep.
Yeah.
That wouldn't really cross. I mean, I've done it with a partner, but it wouldn't cross my mind to do it with a parent. But that is, what a great forum to learn.
And your mum was up for it.
Yeah.
And how was your relationship with your mum at the time?
Very like strained. So I think for a long time, when I realised her drinking was really bad, I was like, I'm done with dealing with that basically. But then eventually I could get pushed into like getting into it with her. So I'd just have a full fight, like scream match at her and stuff. And I think probably to my own detriment used to wind her up enough where she'd hit me so I could say that she'd hit me. Which is,
I know that pattern.
Inconvenient. But
was your mum tactile with you? Was she a loving mum? Would she give you cuddles and love and encouragement?
Yeah. And we sat down, I think, quite a lot of times and almost done this where we just talked about things, and because she stopped drinking eventually. So I think when I was about 16 to like 18, we'd sit and just chat, just sit in the backyard and we'd smoke. And
so she's sober now?
I believe so.
Power to her.
Who knows? I haven't seen her in a while.
Have you not?
No, it's emotionally unavailable for me at the moment. You know, like you know, when you can feel this, like the cost of a relationship compared to like how it's beneficial to you, basically, has never balanced out in later life. But it's an interesting thing to do.
Isn't it fucking just hearing you say that, Jack? Because it's one thing coming to terms with things and gathering a bit of knowledge and experience and understanding, like, what happened as a child? Oh, I understand, not just me. Like, what happens to us as children is so integral to like who we become and how we measure ourselves in the society and so on.
And we don't even know the true cost.
And you don't. And then you get in, even armed with that knowledge. Yeah. And I have tried to do what it sounds like you have done, which is like, Mum, why don't we go and sit and speak to somebody who can help us and mediate, and we can learn a bit about ourselves and surrender and try and break this pattern. I am still dipping in and out. I try to muster that energy because it's cyclical, isn't it? So you probably know, like, okay, it's been a while and I'm at this stage of my life and I'd like to share this, and then something, my mum did it just this last week, just in a WhatsApp group. Listeners to the podcast know I'm not really on social media, right, and stuff. I don't have notifications, and my mum's sent me a message. And I started a group, family WhatsApp, right? I'm sure everybody's got a family WhatsApp these days, right?
Yeah, they're good fun, mate.
Right, so I started one because my family's estranged and everything we've discussed is still kind of there, the reverberations, and we're all kind of eggshells. But on our big van journey last year, right, we took the kids around Europe, Ray's family and mine, and it was amazing. We went to 5 countries. I thought, well, I'll start a little WhatsApp group. because for me, it's the generational thing. It's like my family doesn't know my kids. We don't spend any time with my kids, and is this going to affect my kids? So I'm kind of in that place. Set up this thing, pop some pictures in there. Just here's the kids doing this. I'm not writing anything that can be misconstrued. And look at him, you think you're fucking great or whatever it is, right? Here's Sonny in Switzerland, and he's happy, and hopefully that makes you happy, and you can see what's going on, right? Anyway, that's continued a year later, and I just popped some stuff in about a loft conversion I'm doing right recently. We're doing this, and I know from speaking to my therapist, like there's part of me that's like offering this as an olive branch. I'm making my home
accessible to
you. Like, I'm making this room. I'd love for you to come and stay. Blah blah blah. And my sister, my estranged sisters recently. This is all going public now, isn't it? My estranged sisters just come into the WhatsApp group. Who's been estranged from the family for 4 or 5 years, right? And my mum left, and then I've had a chat with my mum. I said, "Look, Mum, come back in the group because at least." Our nephews are in your nephews are cousins like the kids, So she's come back in. Anyway, this last week, my mum sends me a message, and it's, "Are you seeing my WhatsApp comments?" And I'm like, in the builder's merchants, I'm thinking, "What? Hey, what?" So I get on my phone, and again, I don't have notifications, so I go in and I have a quick look at the latest whatever, and I'm like, "Yeah, my mum, yeah, stepdad, yeah, Stephanie, yeah, well, what's up? I've just noticed you're not acknowledging my comments, but you're acknowledging Stephanie's and footballs."
I love the impression of your mum, by the way. It's great. You've got the posture and everything.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to my mum, she'll even have a laugh when I do that. "Are you getting up? There's a van outside. It's been there for 10 minutes. That's a traumatic response from me. Mandarin getting told to go to work. But no, where I'm getting to is even at my age, with my family, with the understanding I've broken a cycle, thinking about my mum, thinking how she's thinking, like, why have you like this and not that? And I was like, "Look, Mum, I don't even have notifications. I could get in there. Could have been 20 messages I've missed." Honestly, please don't read into it too much. And what bothers me, and this is more on a societal level, is that I think we're all doing that a lot, kind of filling in the blanks with our biases, with our insecurities. And I said to my mum recently, "It'd be cool, if we could go and talk, and maybe my brother, you could come and we could try and at least unravel something." But her response was she doesn't want to go and blame, just basically sit and blame other people for.
That's a beautiful thing about that sort of forum, isn't it, where you're sat in a room and somebody's deciphering, so you might even say something that you might misconstrue, but there's a therapist there, trained professional, that'll go, "Actually, did you mean this?" And it gets to the
just
bones of it.
Makes sense. A map, a road
because
map,
messages,
emotions.
I think
they're like emails and that. Like you can just take
a tonal email where you're just at the wrong time. You're in a traffic jam, and it's like, "Whoa, hang on a minute."
Yeah.
We're not reading our emails in the car. We're doing that at the desk. We're using our phones.
Drive responsibly, kids.
Yeah, but how do you think that impacted your relationship? Do you think it had a positive impact then?
Well, I think it was probably the last time I probably spoke to her, to be fair, because it was that I was wanting to get to a stage where she would volunteer some of the information and some of the emotional sort of like recourse, I guess. I wanted her to sit and say, "I can imagine how that made you feel, and this is why I was behaving that way, and I've done some searching myself or therapy or whatever it might be." But it wasn't that I wanted her to feel blamed or anything. I just wanted the story so that I could
make sense,
take it away, write about it, justify it, like ponder on it, rather than, like we've all said, there's those little bits where you don't really understand why you're feeling a certain way, and you can take them away. And if your personality's fucking mint and you're really good at rationalizing things, and you can like go X, Y, and Z, I'm fine now.
Yeah, those blokes are mint
I
at
don't
that,
think
aren't we?
any of us have done that by the sound of things. We've all gone like, I'll just go on the drink, I'll just get some gear and like chat to my mate in the kitchen, then I'll feel good. And then you wake up and you're like, fuck, why was I talking about that in the kitchen at 2 a.m. with my mate? Like, it was weird, and I hugged that stranger, and I'm going to go home.
And I blitzed a load of money that I knew one of my bodies just took a hammer in, and I've got to get my shit together for tomorrow, but I'm down.
And then you're like, no one actually cares, so I'll just do it again, it's going to be fine, and I'll sort it out later. And it's like a bit of a shame, but I think doing that kind of therapy in that, like you say, forum with someone that's safe and good, it stops it going too far. It stops it going down the rabbit hole of, oh, when you said this, it hurt me. Oh, I said that because your dad. They'll come in and say, it wasn't that. There's a conversation. We're talking about your interaction together and stuff. So definitely good. But
how was your mum with it, Jack? How did she?
Not good, I would say.
It's that generational thing, though, because I think like the thought of my mum coming into a therapy session with me
and lifting the lid on, like,
definitely.
Yeah, I think that's where my mum. Well, to be fair to my mum, that's pretty much what she said. She said, "I can't lift the lid on that," and she framed it as, "I don't want to end up blaming other people."
And I know we talk about, you know, men being of a certain, you know, closed off nature and whatnot, but I do think there's a generational thing with
for sure, yeah.
Well, hopefully it's just like technology though, just gets better as we carry on. There's more advanced in it, is my understanding of it. Like, I think the conversations I'll sit and have with you two, being that you're a customer and a stranger to me, like, is remarkable considering the conversations I had with my dad growing up.
Yeah,
because he's really closed off. He's really quiet.
What's your brother like as a dad?
I think he's pretty mint.
Yeah.
Do you
think in his way then he's kind of trying to be the things he didn't get?
Well, yeah, I was trying to circle back around to this with you being the older sibling and then having the kids and the family and being the most conventional again. Do you think it's that you've seen what's going on and you've taken on that little mantle, that little role? Because my brother took me under his wing completely. Like, I was never the little brother. I was always invited out with them all the time. Like, when they were going to the pub when they were 18, they're like, "You want to come along?" And then I'd just sit in the pub until 9 and go home, like, just for something to do. But I think that's what I see in him. I don't know how it feels for him, but
I was similar. Although sadly, my brother, me and him, he's really struggled with it, and it's. I think the way I've dealt with it and my personality type, I've got up his nose along the way, I think, because I've been like shaking people. You know, we can do it. You know, you need to stop. Get off the fucking weed, man. You know, I used to smoke loads of weed, and I think there's probably a part of me that reflects my dad to him, and that, you know, although I know he loves me and I love him dearly, the inability to shake off those patterns, that normality of how we communicate, which is volatile, and so I worry for him, but certainly in myself, I feel like with my family. And it's funny because we were just chatting this week, I had my supervision for our job, and that's where I'm sort of understanding where I'm at the moment. It's kind of a bit of a guilt thing going on, where I've kind of managed to create something healthy, but I feel so bad for the people in my family, you know, that I know are just unable to, whatever it is, take that lid off and just go, "Do you know what, shit, we can't." It's not to say we're going to make everything better and it's all going to be amazing, but just to, like I think you were saying there, I just want to hear you say that this happened because of that, and I know it wasn't great, but at least we've acknowledged it and we can park it. Yeah,
I think it's even similar to what you were saying about people coming in and saying something and you realise that they're like, want to talk about something or whatever. You've got to create the opportunity just to have a proper conversation, because I do think it's unfortunate for a lot of men that sometimes the best you get is you spend the afternoon in the pub with your mate and then you give him a hug and say, "Love you, brother, see you next week," and then you go home, and that's your, if you're like a single man, that might be your interaction for the week or whatever. That's
a really good point.
That's your thing, if you know what I mean. If you don't take the time to make opportunities for people or yourself, you're not going to like flourish into who you actually might be, because you're just going to repress everything.
You seem really well balanced, and
well, you got to try.
For a tattoo artist,
I'm also fully tapped though. Like,
but that's probably the balance, isn't it? Is like knowing where the boundaries of it all.
Yeah, and I think you got to learn to identify like a positive, rational thought with a impulsive, like destructive thought and things like that. But it can get really hard, can't it? Especially if you're drinking or doing drugs or messing around with your brain chemistry or even getting on antidepressants. You're like, is that a genuine thought that I should pursue, or am I just tweaking out right now?
And what about relationships for you then along the way? Is that something that you've sort of steered away from, or have you been, does it get scary? Because I've struggled with that.
Relationships are tough.
For
sure. Just lots of sort of shorter mid-length relationships, and then when it starts getting into that grind of normal house living, doing the chores, like, why are you out so late? Sorry, I had to do a packet. Couldn't possibly come home this week. Like, you got your horrible coping mechanisms, haven't you? And that gets in the way of everything. And then I think, like with gift giving and stuff like that, if I'm having an argument with someone and they come back and apologise, it is like meaningless to me. I'm like, well, it shouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? But I'll still fly off the handle. So it's like there's a double standard, and it all gets in the way, doesn't it?
Wow. God, it's complex.
What I try and do is look at any relationship you're having as a positive, as something that's added into your life by choice. So if it were to end, you just go, well, that was good while it lasted. That was enjoyable. I learned X, Y, and Z about myself. Let's apply that better. Carry on. But I don't know, go around and you have connections with people. It's good.
It's interesting now, because like when you look back when I certainly look back, there's times when I've been in relationships and I just didn't have the emotional intelligence to understand that I wasn't dealing with things, or I was scared, and I was using unhealthy coping strategies, and I was angry, and I hadn't confronted myself, and it was everyone else's problems. And then the next relationship, I started doing work on it, but I hadn't addressed certain things, and then they manifested, and then ultimately landed in the relationship I'm in now, where, don't get me wrong, when we got together 8 years ago, I'm not finished. I'm not saying bye. I am
walking on water.
Yeah, I'm walking on water and living like a Tibetan monk. But like, I'd done a lot of work, but taking that next step, we decided we were going to have kids and buy a long-term house and get married, and then that kicks up another whole level of things where you've got to. And then I'm like, well, I've done work. Well, there's a lot more to do. It holds that mirror up to you again. You're like, shit, I'm still using healthy coping strategies, and I'm still an angry bastard, and there's still parts of me that I hate and I can't, and then you go through it again, and it's all work, like I don't know if you ever stop.
And the mirror of when you've, how old are you, Jack?
31.
So you're a wise lad for 31, with the mirror that gets shown to you as well, which again I talked about in my recent therapy sessions, of when you have your kids, and your brother's probably had this moment, and this is that fork in the road, I think, is you kind of know, right, well, I'm not going to be an absent dad, I'm going to be around, and I'm not going to make you feel like shit and all that. That's kind of there. But there's also the reflection back from your kids where I go back to thinking about my dad. How the fuck did you leave me? How did you leave me? How the fuck did you not get this feeling from me? So then you're in like in a flux, because you're giving and receiving this love, and you're breaking this cycle, and there's so much reward. But at the same time, for me, it was reflective on like, whoa, like how did you leave me?
Well, that's a quandary, because like just what we were talking about before, you get to an age where you start understanding that these people are just human beings with their own shit and and then you start like from that point, you're like, oh, actually, you know what, the forgiveness, and it's all about that, isn't it?
Yes,
understanding
that is true.
and coming to terms with things and whatnot. But then you are wrestling with that, because you might be away for a few days and you're like, oh god, I miss them so much, and anything. Well, how could you just leave me with strangers to go off and have an affair? Or how did you come back with that bloke and kick us out the house at 11 o'clock at night, and we had to get the night bus at 6 years old, and then those things just don't compute. In fact, it becomes a bit worse, doesn't it? And you're just like, oh, it's such a mad headspace to be in.
It is. It's like a belt, like karate belt, and it's like you get to like blue belt of compassion, don't you? And you go,
I've stopped doing drugs, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
And get up to the next level, you're like, oh shit, I have to provide for my kids.
But it is true, and I think that's why I asked your age, Jack, because you sort of get into your 30s. I've got two brothers around your age, my two half brothers. Well, they're my brothers. They're my brothers. But they're 31, 32, 33, 34, around, and they've struggled, although in a different way, because when my mum remarried, my stepdad, who's a wicked, great guy, but he was working away all the time. He was away 4 months at a time, maybe. He might be in Russia, he was on-site machinist, he wasn't there. By then, they've stayed together. My mum and my stepdad are still together now, and, my two brothers, I'm 13 and 10 years older than them respectively, right? So I was leaving the house at 17. But I always remember thinking, well, they're going to be all right, because the mum and dad are together and they've got a few quid now, having piano lessons and shit. Not dissimilar to what you'd said about, they've got the house, they've got a few quid. But actually, it's maybe been just as destructive for them seeing the things it sounds like you saw, where mum and dad are together and they've stayed together and they're kind of hanging in there for the kids, but there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of not healthy communication and norms, and they're really struggling. And the weed, I think, is a common thing for young men like us, because you can still function, but you just sit in that chair, don't you, and all your ideas are there, but fucking hell, getting round to them. So that's a whole another thing I grapple with for my brothers, and for my family, is like how it's every shape and size of like difficulty in it, trying to come to terms with where you stand and what it means, and how do you build relationships, and how do you trust yourself to move on in your life if you get trapped, especially as a young man. And some of the stuff now as well, like the weed, gaming and porn and social media as a as like a safety net or a, you know, like,
I think it's a way of staying isolated, isn't it? And isolated is protected. If you grow up in a hostile environment for any way, like, you learn to isolate yourself, you learn to take yourself off and do something that's going to be for you. And then if you're doing that stuff, you end up in those places on the internet, don't you?
Yeah.
And you end up hanging out with your mate after school and smoking weed for the first time and throwing up and being like, that was bizarre.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah. It was funny. I've never had a Twix that tastes that good. Yeah. And also from the porn side and stuff as well, is and that there's none of the emotional responsibility involved, and the gratification is all different, isn't it? And if we have got those elements of us that are concerned about whether we can trust other people or whether we're even emotionally, intimately even able to sort of be available, porn fits that bill, doesn't it? And the cycle just sort of feeds itself. It's I think that's something to think about in our time.
But yeah, I think it's pretty good what you're saying. Like, when you find yourself stuck in those little moments in your life where you're like, how do I go forward from here? I think the best thing I've learned is to, like, firstly communicate with yourself and be like, do you know what? You've done X, Y, and Z in the last week that probably isn't normal for you. Like, you've stopped doing the dishes, you're not listening to music in the house, and you've bailed on your friends 3 nights in a row. And then I'm like,
that's a level of awareness.
But it's tough. Like, I'll get 2 weeks into having like a really awful mental state, and I'll look around and be like, this isn't good. Like, I'm not doing my drawings on time for my tattooing. I'm not turning up where I'm meant to be turning up. I'm like wandering around having a cigarette at 11 at night because I can't sleep. Like, that's all not correct. And then once you notice that, it's reaching out to the people that can support you in a non-transactional way, I think. And I think a lot of people turn to their partners. But recently my relationship ended, and one of the things she said was, I'm not used to communicating that much with someone. I'm not used to having someone that needs that much communication.
Right,
because I know that I am. Like, if I get anxious about something, I'm like, right, let's talk about this, let's put it to bed, support me with it. But really, it'd be nice if someone can do that for you, but as an expectation in a relationship, that is huge for her, because she's like, if I don't get this right, you're not going to be right. You're going to keep not doing the dishes, and you're going to keep coming home late. Do
you know what, though? For most men, like, the one argument of women is you don't communicate, you don't talk.
I probably
about things,
don't communicate correctly, you know what I mean? But I'm trying. Like,
that sounds quite harsh, doesn't it? For that to be like feedback, and that could maybe have a really negative impact on you. To realise that no, actually, it's super important.
I mean, again, that's something that you're self-aware of, is how do you take that on? Because, like you're saying, you're filling all the blanks. So I'm going to go, oh, she thinks I need too much or whatever like that. But then to be self-aware enough where I'd like paused on it and was like, do you know what? She probably means that's a huge expectation to put on me. And it's something I'm struggling with. So then I can hopefully turn around and have a conversation with her and go, did you mean this? And she'll say, yeah, of course I meant that. Like, what else could I possibly have meant? Because she's in that one-track mind of saying the right thing. But I think there's plenty of people that are in lots of people's lives, hopefully for them, that you can reach out to and not just go to the pub and get pissed, but go for a walk. And that conversation like we're doing, just trundle along, trail over.
So on that one, talking about support, and I want to circle back to a comment you made earlier about, places that feel like home, and, not really finding that fit. Obviously, we're sat in Newcastle here, a little while from where you were brought up. How does it feel being here in the Northeast? Have you found those support networks? What do you think of the...
I don't think I've ever had as many friends as I have since moving up here. And I think that's testament to, like, the open-minded nature of a lot of people up here. I know there's certain aspects that people would say, the Northeast England, they're not open-minded. But I think in terms of humanitarian, like, conversation and, like, being decent, like, you can go into a pub here and sit down and have a pint and actually, like, genuinely meet a guy that you're going to hang out and go skateboarding with next week just because you dress the same. Like, people seem really friendly up here. I'm really outgoing anyway, so I think I do all right for that. But I moved up here with like two family friends lived up here, so I moved up to like hang out with them and be closer because I was like, I can't down south anymore, can't do it. So I moved up here, and just from those two people, I've got a huge network of friends and colleagues and customers, whatever. Like, I get on
as a Geordie lad, and obviously Sam, you probably echo.
Oh, totally. I was just about to say, coming up here, and you hear it all the time, the south and the north, and there's all the archemypes and the stereotypes.
There is that absolute like lovely banter of people being like, oh, you're Southern Fairy, and you're like, you can't really say that anymore.
It's something about the further north you go, though, there seems to be, I always refer to it as like it's closer to the source. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because of the weather, the conditions, the very things we talk about often, the industrial hard nature of life up here at one point. But people seem to genuinely have a bit of time for you. I don't know if it's because it's less populated and it's less chaos, it's less busy. Don't know, but you certainly feel it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like there's a certain like pride to the place being the people almost up here. Like everyone's allowed to come and be themselves and work hard and party hard, I guess, but enjoy themselves.
The Carabao Cup. What just happened there? And even hardened football pundits, Jamie Carragher, Liverpool, very similar city, strong identity, strong passion, but they were over the moon for Newcastle fans because they could see what it means. The Brazilian boys in the team who've been there a couple of years, Bruno and Joe Linton, you could see those boys. They've somehow tapped into that energy that is here, that is like, we're together, this means something, and it's so powerful.
It sort of is a seamless segue into my next question for you. So, having been brought up in the south and come to the north and all those fantastic things you talk about, and I love hearing that, and I share that opinion. I think people are lovely and warm, and a lot of them will have your best intentions. The reason that we started this podcast is because when we started working in this area and we look into regional statistics and whatnot, the northeast is struggling. I want to say the worst out of the whole of the UK. Suicide rates are shocking, and mental health and support and whatnot is really difficult. So given those things that you've just said, people are warm, people are friendly, everyone thinks we're all up here having a great crack and whatnot. Why do you think that is?
Firstly, the weather is horrible.
No, really.
Genuinely,
I think, do you know what? Someone is affected by the weather badly myself.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I think it gets into November and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. And I've got to think of coping strategies, things to do deliberately. Like I'll download a video game that I really like the look of and be like, when I'm cold and I'm in the blankets, I'm going to sit and play this, and that's going to be my mental activity, if you know what I mean. But I guess another part of it could be that there is that strong working class, we're going to get it sorted, and if we can't sort it, we're fucked kind of thing. There's a huge drinking culture up here, and I think that there are drinking cultures elsewhere, but I think living up here, it's really normalised to pop into the pub immediately after work and have a few beers. And
has that become apparent to you since you've been here?
I'd say so, but I don't know if it's because I'm living in a slightly different lifestyle, if you know what I mean, than I was down south. But I don't know, I drink a fair bit around Tynemouth, and I go in places that I reckon I could go in most of the bars in Tynemouth and see someone today and be like, all right, pal.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
But I don't know, having not lived anywhere else apart from the south coast, but I think the south coast is where I'm from is really pretty upper class and stuff like that. So I think that where I was living was a lot more affluent, and I'd say where I'm living in North Shields is now. And I think when you have that affluence, you have time is your commodity, and you can afford to go to therapy for your time.
Some of the thing I often think, and we covered it a little bit about when as Southern and East Midlands person sort of embedded ourselves here, I think about is the people here, that sound and got time for others. It's almost like there's a self-neglect almost.
Yeah.
You make sure everybody else is no bother before yourself to a degree. I get an element of that.
I think just thinking about it as well, if we've both come from the South Coast or Midlands or anything, and our parents have had drinking problems and your parents have had drinking problems, it's obviously a universal thing that happens at least within Britain. Let's just put it that far. So I think my mum's dad was a drinker and everything. My dad used to drink a lot. He'd drink a bottle or two a night of wine, and I didn't think that was a lot of drinking, and I still don't necessarily. Like last night I had a bottle and a half of wine and smoked some weed, and I was like, that's fine, that's a normal thing to do, and then cook some burgers and whatever. But if we all know that's going on in private, because that is in the home setting, that's my parents were drinking in the home setting, I'll drink at home sometimes. But then you go out and you see it and you go, oh, there's a wide berth of drinking culture here. All that means is it's twofold, if you know what I mean. If we can live up here and work hard and the rent's not huge and the mortgages aren't huge, you've got the spare money and you make the time to go and see your mates, and like you say, you give away a bit of yourself, sitting at the bar talking about the weather and the tennis or whatever it might be.
There's still something to be said about that setting, about going for a couple of beers with your mates and just chewing the shit,
but have a non-alcoholic every now and then.
Yeah, for sure, right.
I don't know, have a nice time,
or at least not put 6-7 pints away.
That's it. Like, there's the learning of the boundary,
and what you're doing it for. If you're running away from something and you're masking it and you're using it as a coping strategy. But interestingly, when you said you've got found a friendship group here, and we're looking at changes and changes to opinions and people's approach and openness and all that. Do you find that you've got a group of friends here that you can speak to on that level, where if there was things you need to talk about, would you be able to have those conversations in a non-alcohol setting?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. But it's not that I've got one set group of friends that I'll talk to that about. I find people that you see eye to eye with in different places, but it's nice as well. Sometimes you get someone that will challenge you. So you'll say, I'm feeling really awful at the minute. And they'll say, we've not really been sleeping. I've seen you out every night this week. You're like, it's fair.
Didn't think that.
Didn't like that. That hurt. No, it's my fault, you mean? But it's nice. You can, I found that with myself, I find different people that I can talk to and mutually find each other accountable for things, like be honest with each other. And it doesn't have to be that you've got an entire friend group. It could be that you got one person that you get on really, really well with. But if you've got 6 of those one people that you get on really well with, and you can reach out for advice and a chat, that's the real value, isn't it? You don't have to be the most liked person in the room. It's nice to have your true friendship, a real connection with someone.
And another thing about, indicators that you maybe not in a good space, over the years where you have had that one person and then you start avoiding them. That's another indicator.
That's it.
I haven't spoken to them. And the problem is, because I know that when I do speak to them, they're going to say, they're going to say, by the way, mate.
That's it.
It's interesting. I think just to round things off, and just to ask you another question that we ask on all the pods, is we might touch on some of them, but what would you, for anyone listening, what would be your advice on something that's really helped you in the past with your mental health and well-being? Is there one thing you can go to that has been a real important part of your journey that's helped you?
I think for me, it's like having that self-awareness to identify that there's a problem early enough that you can sort something out before you go too far with it. So like constantly trying to have conversations with yourself. I used to like write in a little like piece of paper diary, and like you just rip the page off and throw it away, and that's all I used to do. But I'd get in bed and just write out a bunch of things that had gone on, and then I'd screw it up and throw it away, only for a practice of thinking about stuff and being...
How did you come to doing that though, Jack? And I think that self-awareness, when and how did that come about? Because you said before you don't listen to podcasts and stuff, because for me podcasts were a huge vehicle for me to sort of delve in and start having a bit of understanding about myself. So how did that come for you?
Well, I think I was about 12 or 13 when I realised that my parents were just normal people doing their thing. And I think my coping strategy at that age was to like look at them and be like, why would you behave that way? And try and like be compassionate in the understanding of another person's actions. So I think from doing that became really introspective about my own actions. So when you realise that you're 16 and you've just had a drunken argument with your girlfriend, and like that relationship didn't mean anything then, if you know what I mean. Probably for a lot of people they had the same relationship, but it feels like your entire world's ending because you're so invested in it, because you haven't learned a regular coping mechanism of, this is an uncomfortable conversation, I can walk away. So when you wake up with that guilt and shame and regret, and you hold yourself accountable, the one thing you get is that you need to change. And change is really difficult. Change is like a massive investment in yourself. It's painful. It's really costly. It's like knackering. But it's the only thing that I think that I've done consistently that's really helpful for me is to analyze what I'm doing and then try and make a correct decision off that. So if you have got that group of friends that you go and hang out with, and you have to drink to talk to them, and you have to do whatever drugs you're going to choose to do with them or whatever, and that's your coping mechanism, there'll come a time where you wake up and you're like, that's not healthy, that's not good, and you can ignore it, or you can go, do you know what, I need a little bit of distance from them. And there might be that one lad that you hang out with in that group that you're like, me and him see eye to eye, we both like riding fixed gear bikes, let's go on a fixed gear bike ride. And like having that self-awareness and allowing yourself the time to process stuff as well, I think is the main thing. But being proactive and leaning on others but not relying on them. And if you think that you need some serious help, I would definitely go to the doctors, because I think for a long time I was really, really depressed, and that made me really anxious, and that made me quite shy and like withdrawn, and I wouldn't try and do the things I wanted to do. I only started tattooing because I started taking antidepressants because of COVID. Like I was absolutely wrecked at home, just didn't want to do anything. Started taking antidepressants, and it gave me just enough energy to start doing a hobby for the first time in years. And I was like, this is sick. I can like wake up and like buy a picture frame and then put a painting in it, and at the end of the day I'll have a thing that I've done.
Purpose, meaning, direction.
So like, I think had I not gone to the doctors, I would have just sat there working at a call centre and feeling really miserable. And then your brain goes like, oh, could I have gotten worse and worse, and ended up in a really bad way. And I think everyone has that little moment in their life where like, oh, if I'd gone down that other pathway, I'd probably not be sat here having a nice chat. Like,
that's amazing. And what you just said, I concur, and I think you probably would as well, Ray. You know, when you look in the mirror and you know the actions that you are creating, the things that you're frustrated with, whatever it is, what you just described there, I had that. I remember going from the session up to have a piss and looking in that mirror and seeing myself and sort of having that breakaway from the session and the vibe for a minute, and looking in the mirror and just thinking, fuck's sake, you know, like, I'm going to go back down there, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and I don't want to do this anymore. And that self-awareness there to just accept it from yourself. Well, if I'd be at home if it weren't for my mum, or you're blaming, you know, like, actually I've got to change this, and sort of trust in that, and it is scary because you do end up socially ostracised or whatever it might be, you know, it is scary, but no, I think that's amazing advice, mate. That
powerful stuff, mate. And no, I really enjoyed this pod.
I've loved this one. This is total curveball. This is really, really cool.
Arranged at the last minute. I'm on to you guys.
No, it's meant.
I didn't have time for you to think it through that.
You've been super, just open, frank. We chatting on, like you said yourself. Now we're strangers. You guys have got intimate time spent together.
Yeah.
But I feel connected because we've shared, and hopefully it's people listening to this. Yeah.
Testament to you guys though, because I've just come in here and felt really comfortable and welcome, which is amazing. Like,
awesome, mate.
You might give someone an opportunity to come on here who really needs it, and then they'll just get the words out that they needed to get out, or hear some advice, which is it's been an interesting thing to do.
Thanks, brother.
Nice one, Jack.
So just to round it off, Jack, where would people find if they're interested in getting tattooed by you, or some of your
straight on Instagram, Jack_Caldwell_tattoo. That would be it.
Awesome. Cool. And I can be testament for that. Like I say, I've got, I think 80% of my tattoos are done by Jack. He's awesome. So check him out.
Wicked.
And thanks again, Jack. We really enjoyed it, mate.
Thank you, Jack.
Big love.
Peace and love, my friend.
Oh, thanks.